Good morning or afternoon, depending upon what time you woke up and started this assignment. We're going to continue talking about confirmation bias this week, so I will make this a little bigger and go through the lesson with you and hope that my dog doesn't bark because she's really threatening to bark at something that she sees going on outside there. So I borrowed this information from a website called Simple Psychology and kind of simplified some things, made some things my own, left some things out. So in order to give credit to where I found the basis for this information, I have put that down here at the bottom to cite my source, because I'm trying to set a good example as a teacher that you always need to cite your sources and acknowledge when it's not always your idea. So our essential question for today is, why do people think or believe things to be true in spite of evidence to the contrary? Why do people continue to believe things even when they are given facts upon facts and evidence upon evidence to prove the opposite? So our overview of today's lesson, there are 5 main points here. The first is that we are more likely to believe things that confirm what we already believe. So if I have always believed that gremlins exist, it's going to be really, really hard to convince me that gremlins are just a fictitious character created for a movie. We give more weight to information that supports our biases than we do to information that does not support our biases. So if I find information that proves the existence of gremlins, I am going to consider that information more valid, more important than any information that tells me gremlins are not real. Third, we tend to gather information from sources that support our biases. So if I really, really want to prove that gremlins exist, I might seek out only information on the internet or from wherever. I only seek out information that supports that gremlins exist. And then I tend to ignore anything that tells me gremlins don't exist because it doesn't support what I want to believe. 3, we tend to interpret information in ways that support our biases. Okay, so if I find an article that's relatively unbiased and says, well, there's a particular belief out there that gremlins exist, and maybe they do, but there are also reasons to believe that they're just a fictitious character, then I'm going to look at that, and maybe I will only look at the first point where it says, well, there may be evidence, okay? And I'm going to say, well, clearly this article says that gremlins exist, even though it also pointed out that there is evidence that they don't. And finally, the more emotional we are about an issue, the more biased we will be about it. That is why when people talk about religion and politics, okay, those are ideas that they are usually highly emotionally attached to. So the more emotional we are about a topic, the more likely we are to be very biased and unwilling to change what we've already learned or what we already believe. It's emotional attachment we're going to find over the course of this class. Emotional attachment, okay, is super duper important when persuading people. Like that may be the most motivating factor in persuading people, is to tune into their emotions. All right, so the bias search for information. People often search for evidence in a one-sided way to support their own biases. In other words, you seek out only the information that supports what you already believe. So we see this all the time when people watch the news. When I was little, there were only like 3 major news outlets. And as time went by and we got more channels and we got the internet, we saw that more and more news outlets started popping up and they became more and more biased. Okay. Originally, when, news journalism was created, it was supposed to report the facts. It was supposed to, but we know from our history of media, it didn't always support the facts. So now we see that like conservative voters are more likely to follow outlets like Fox because outlets like Fox support conservative views and report things from biases that conservative viewers like. So why am I going to watch HuffPost, which is super liberally biased, when I know I'm not going to like what they have to say on HuffPost? I'm going to watch the news source that supports what I already want to hear. Okay? So a lot of conservative voters are very likely to watch Fox News, and liberal voters are more likely to watch something like Huffington Post, which again, both of those news outlets, as we will study through this course, are both really, really biased sources. Okay, so it's not to say that those news outlets are useless. They're not useless, but it is important to acknowledge that they're very biased. Anyway, we like to hear things that we like to hear, and that's why we choose information that supports what we already want to hear. For example, if we look at these two news outlets, I took these pictures very recently. Okay, they're from 1/17/2021. Okay. Which news outlet do you think a Trump supporter would rather follow? Would they rather follow the one here? This is Fox News. DeRoy Murdoch, final fair look at Trump presidency shows abundant policy victories. So this headline is saying that Trump was like the best president ever, that he had all of these wins, okay? So would a Trump supporter rather follow this news outlet, Fox, or would he or she want to follow this one, which is from HuffPost? The headline here is Trump's legacy. 2 impeachments, an insurrection, countless lies, and corruption. Somebody who likes Trump, are they going to want to read this news source? So when you go through your slideshow, I want you to put an X in the box that you think a Trump supporter would most likely want to watch or read or listen to. Our second major point here is that we interpret information in a biased way. So when we find new evidence, we interpret it based on what we already believe. In short, here, if you disagree with the evidence, you're going to be likely to ignore it even if it's true. And if you agree with the evidence, you are more likely to believe it even if it's false. For example, how many of the following stories about American history do you believe to be true? I want you to place a box in each one of these that you believe to be true. Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. Betsy Ross designed the first American flag. The first Thanksgiving involved happy pilgrims and Indians eating turkey and stuffing together. America was founded on Christianity. It is illegal to burn the United States flag. Okay, so how many of those stories do you believe to be true? Place an X in those boxes. When you're done with that, I want you to go to this webpage, the 40 most enduring myths in American history. And I want you to scroll through there and I want you to look for the ones that we just discussed. Look for the ones that you put an X, okay? And I want you to read what it has to say about those beliefs you held to be true. So if you believe that Betsy Ross invented the first American flag or designed it, then I want you to find that section and I want you to read it. And then I want you to answer this question. How do you feel about the assertion that none of the claims on the previous slide are factual? Okay, maybe you're going to look at that and you'll be like, that's BS. This is what I learned. I learned this in school. I learned this from my parents. And I know that this particular thing is true, even though this article says otherwise. Okay, how do you feel about being told that something that you were taught earlier in life isn't what you thought it was? Type your response. All right, so now why do we do this? Confirmation bias. We know, again, that we believe what we want to believe even when we're presented with evidence that tells us we're wrong. Confirmation bias makes thinking quicker and easier. That's one reason we do it, okay? So we have so much information being thrown at us all day, every day, that if we need to make a quick decision about something that we see or hear, the fastest way to decide whether we believe it or not is just to access what we already have in our own brain. So if something in my own brain tells me already that gremlins exist, and somebody says gremlins don't exist, I'm going to be like, whatever. I don't have time to go do the research and whatever. I know they exist because that's what I've always believed. So it makes our thinking quicker and easier. Another reason why confirmation bias, why we do this, is our self-esteem, okay? People don't like to be wrong. We feel confident when we are right, when we have the right answer, when we know what's going on. So we tend to only believe or look for information that supports what we already know because we don't want to be wrong, okay? And finally, this fancy word here, cognitive dissonance. I will allow you to click on that, check that more out if you want, okay? But in a nutshell, cognitive dissonance is that our brains get overloaded if we have to try to hold two opposing beliefs. So we choose only the one that's most comfortable for us. The best example I could think of here was smokers know that smoking is dangerous. It says it right on the cigarette pack. You know, I mean, it might as well have a big skull and crossbones. These will kill you slowly. All right? They know smoking is bad, but they also know that they, for whatever reason, enjoy smoking. They're addicted to smoking. So they choose to ignore the fact that they're slowly killing themselves with cigarettes because holding those two opposing beliefs, I'm killing myself. I'm not killing myself. Okay? It's way more comfortable to hold the belief of, I'm not killing myself. Everything is fine. It won't happen to me. Okay? Cognitive dissonance is one reason we have confirmation bias. It's too hard for our brains emotionally to hold two conflicting beliefs. So we choose the one that's easiest for us. So your exit ticket for today. Studies show that the more emotionally attached we are to an idea or belief, the more likely we are to experience confirmation bias. Think of one strongly held belief that you have. One strongly held belief about anything, okay? I want you to write that belief down. Something you hold to be true, no matter what anybody else tells you. And then I want you to think about how hard would it be for someone to convince you that your belief is inaccurate? How hard would it be for somebody to convince you that you are wrong? Would you ever be willing to listen to or read or listen to evidence that does not support that belief? Explain your thoughts in several sentences below. So that means this is a 3-part question. 1, you have to state what is that strongly held belief. 2, you have to write down, answer the question, how hard would it be for someone to convince you it's inaccurate? And then tell me, would you ever be willing to read or listen to evidence that doesn't support that belief? And then explain, giving evidence and thoughts, and I want a full paragraph here. And if you prefer to write in bullet points and lists, that's fine too, but you need to make sure you answer everything and that you give details and that you explain why you think what you think. Otherwise, I will not give you full credit. All right? And I am sorry that my 5-year-old keeps interrupting my lesson. I am almost done.
Where's my walkie?
But I will, if you need anything, please make sure that you email me or call me or text me. If we are all online on GoGuardian, just go ahead and use GoGuardian to shoot me a message. And I will talk to you later. Tomorrow, our JAG Live is at 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. So please log in for JAG Live, and we also have cats. So if you're in JAG Live, hopefully that will help you with your cats. Have a great day.